Hey everyone, sorry I haven't made a video in a while, but this week's kind of confusing, at least I think the reading is, so I'm going to help you out through it. Part 1 of the reading, or the team assignment rather, Part 1 of the team assignment calls for you to add 3 new variables to your class that contains your main method, so like your main class. You will have an out file, an in file, and a log file. The log file and out file will be print readers. Make sure they're private static, and then the in file will be a buffered reader, and that's also private static. You also want to add your getters and setters for these, and you can say I have those down here. And then in your main, in your try, you'll need to initialize the in file to a new buffered reader from a new with a new input stream reader as the argument, and the argument to that system.in. And this is going to set up a reader from the keyboard in the console to be used throughout the application instead of a new scanner. And same thing with our out file. We're going to set up a new print writer which will output to system.out. Do not forget the second parameter, otherwise your output won't flush, which means it won't get written to until the buffer's full, and so you just don't want that. And then a log file will create the log path, and then create a new print writer using the log path instead of system.out. And then we call our start program like usual, and then in our finally we have to make sure to try and close those files or those streams, and then do that in a try catch inside of the finally, and if you can't close them, then throw an error, or just print error closing files, and it'll be okay because we actually end anyways, so not the end of the world. Okay, so that's part 1. Part 2, well, this is all part 1. Part 1 also consists of creating this error view where you have the error file and the log file, so you create a new view called error view. It has 2 properties or 2 variables, error file and log file, which are the out file and the log file of your main class respectively. And then it has a single static void method called display, which takes a class name and an error message. It'll output the error message and it'll log it. So these are pretty common in Java to have log files. Implementing your own is a little more unusual. There are plenty of libraries that do it for us, but this is a good example of what a log file is and how it works and everything. Part 2 of the assignment calls for you to replace everywhere in your code you're calling keyboard, your keyboard scanner where you're collecting input, to use your new in file, and to replace all output with your out file. So the easiest way to do that is, since most of your views extend this view class, we can just we can create a new protected what was it, file writer? Is that what class we're using? Print writer, sorry. Print writer. We'll call this, I think they want us to call it console, and we can initialize that to say the city. No. Get out file, and I have to add an import for print writer, and then a protected buffered. Do I have that backwards? Print writer's out file, buffer reader's in file. Yeah, buffer reader. I think they want us to call this keyboard. And I believe these both have to be final. What is it still complaining about? Oh. They don't have to be final, but we're going to make them final. Okay, so once you have those, obviously you can go through your code and find all these places where you're using keyboard and replace it with, what's it called? Or keyboard. Oh, it already is called keyboard. So we can just delete this and we have to switch next line to read line, but it will operate the exact same way. And of course, I'm not throwing an exception from here like I should. So I'll have to add that. And then I'll have to add that to my view interface. Actually, I'm going to do this an easier way. And what I'm going to do is instead of throwing that, I am going to do a try, and I'm going to catch that. I don't even know what type of exception it is. I'm going to use a generic exception, and I'm going to throw a new runtime exception that is going to say error reading input. That way I don't have to specifically declare throws on everything, being a bit lazy. And our system.out.println we can replace with console.println. But there's an easier way to do this. So the easier way to do this is to go to Edit, Replace in Projects, Projects. Okay, yeah, I only want to do it in the current project. I'm not going to do this for all of you. So we're going to find where it was system.out. And we can replace that with console. And yeah, I'm going to go ahead and replace all of the matches. I'll probably have some exceptions from this, like in here. This doesn't extend view, so I'll need to add these two lines, and then it fixes that. Probably same with start program view. It doesn't extend view, so I'll have to add those two variables here. And then over here inside the city as well, instead of console.println, since I have the out file already, I'm just going to call, oh, you know what? This one should be system.out.println. Only because you might have closed the out file already, so we don't want that one to be the console one. And then over here, my test packages, I also don't need to replace these, so I'm going to replace these back with system.out. So that still saved me a whole bunch of time. It changed a whole bunch of files without me having to go through and do all of that. And then I believe the view is the only place I get input right now. Oh, you know what? I think in the start program view I also get input from the keyboard. So I'm just going to delete this keyboard variable and then call read line, and again wrap that in a try catch and throw a new runtime exception and say error reading input. And then because I'm doing this is part of the scope of variables, because this input's only being declared inside of this try block. I can't use it outside the try block, so I have to make sure to move this outside of the try block here, and then I can just use it inside the try block and everywhere else inside the outer scope of this while loop. Okay, and if you miss a couple, I'm not going to worry too much. But that's part one of the assignment, is replacing. Oh, and then the very last thing is, in your exceptions, instead of throwing a new runtime exception, you probably should use our new error review. So we can call error review dot display, and we can do this dot class dot maybe this dot class doesn't work like I remember it working. Okay, so it's get class. So you can call this dot get class dot get name to get the class name of the class you're currently in, and then we can say error reading input here. Instead of throwing a new runtime exception, let's do that instead. So in all of your catches, anywhere you're catching exception, you should use your new error view as well. So that's part 1 of the assignment. Part 2 of the assignment is saving and loading your game. It sounds overwhelming, but it's really not that bad. So I'll walk you through that in another video, actually, so you can, I don't know, jump between them if you want.